Hailing frequencies open, and welcome to Star Trek Discoverage, the live podcast that boldly goes into excruciating detail about this week's episode of Star Trek Picard. I'm your host, Aaron Coker, a.k.a. Caliban, and if your girlfriend tells you that she prefers replicated cookies, replicate the cookies. Joining me on the show, as usual, is my co-host. She's also the co-host of the Generations Geek podcast, a more or less family-friendly celebration of geekdom. It's Ella Pearson. Ella, welcome back to Discoverage.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here. How are you?
I'm good. Lots of homework this week, so we're working hard.
Well, good luck with that. While you're thinking about that, I got an idea for a senior thesis for you. I mean, it's too late, but
hit me with it.
If you ever do this again, I was thinking about Batman, just from a media studies angle, and I was thinking about how Batman and his story is like the new passion play, at least for the 20th century, and looking like it's going to continue into the 21st. Like, the hagiography of his whole story, his origin, his parents dying, and everything just gets told again and again and again. There's a new Batman movie coming out, and it looks like we're probably going to see the Waynes take some slugs in an alley one more time.
So a paper about how every anti-hero and villain is Batman?
No, well, possibly. That's a good idea. But just a examination of why that is, his resonance as a character, and then projecting it, too. Like, the last part would be looking forward into the future. Like, could Martha Wayne become a role like Poirot or like Olivier's Hamlet? Is there an actress who could nail Martha Wayne so hard that we got to bring her back to get shot every single time in that stupid alley? These are the kind of things people need to think about now.
It's embarrassing because I've seen no Batman movie.
Oh, okay.
So I'm like, yes, the parents die, and then he's charismatic but sad, but just, and I don't.
All right, I'm giving this to somebody else. I guess if I'd said Loki's mother dying, then you'd be all in. All right, also joining us on the show tonight, he's a frequent guest on Discoverage and on Enterprising Individuals. He's the author of Trek novels The Shocks of Adversity, Losing the Peace, and A Less Perfect Union, and he's a 3-time winner of the Strange New Worlds writing competition. It's William Leisner. Bill, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here. It's great to have you back. I don't think that we have talked since Picard started airing. What have you thought about the show so far?
We have not. From the Skype here, I see that the last time we talked was almost exactly a year ago with Discovery. So
right, yeah. Well, we talked in person, but yeah.
Yes, we did, didn't we? Well, but, no, I've been enjoying Picard a lot. It's great to see Patrick Stewart back, and
yeah,
there are some things to discuss about the show, which you have discovered. Which we are going to do now, I suppose.
Yeah. Something that they repeated over and over before the show came out was that the audience shouldn't expect TNG. This isn't like season 8 of TNG. It's going to be a different vibe to the show. And I think that that is true, but I guess I'm having a little trouble exactly putting my finger on exactly what the differences are and what they really meant when they said that. I mean, it's different. It's not episodic. It's more linear. But it seems like we're diving into the character of Picard and the assumptions that we have about that character and the assumptions that he has about himself.
Right, and it's a much darker look at the Star Trek universe, and there are a lot more shades of gray with the people that he's working with. He's trying to be the best version of Picard that he can be, and he's got a lot of things working against him. Yeah,
he certainly does. You said shades of gray, and I got chills for a second, but I realized what you meant.
No.
I had a lot of flashbacks, but yeah. And he deals with a lot of those things in this specific episode, which we'll talk about right now. It's great to have you back on the show. We are here to talk about the 5th episode of the new CBS, I guess it's not all that new anymore, CBS All Access Star Trek series, Star Trek Picard. This episode is called Stardust City Rag, And before we start, as always, we're setting a course for the spoiler zone listeners, so be warned. We're glad you've decided to join us, but if you haven't seen the episode, spoilers are incoming. The official synopsis for Stardust City Rag is, the La Sirena crew begins an unpredictable and lively expedition on Freecloud to search for Bruce Maddox. When they learn that Maddox has found himself in a precarious situation, a familiar face offers her assistance. This episode is written by Kirsten Beyer, Ella's sci-fi aunt, who we've talked about on the show previously. She is a writer and producer on both Star Trek Discovery and Star Trek Picard. She's also the co-creator of Picard, and she previously co-wrote the series premiere, Remembrance. She's the author of many Voyager tie-in novels, and her latest novel, To Lose the Earth, comes out this October. This episode was directed by Jonathan Frakes, who needs no introduction. The last episode was, of course, directed by him as well. And this episode continues the tradition of opening in the past in a flashback. This one takes place in 2386, and then goes to the main body of the story, which takes place in 2399. There's a few interesting aspects to this episode. If anybody's curious, a rag, as in Stardust City Rag, is, I'm assuming, referring to the musical composition in a ragtime style, which was wildly popular in the first two decades of the 20th century. And this episode features the return of the character Bruce Maddox to the franchise, and also the exit of Bruce Maddox from the franchise. Maddox is played here by actor John Ailes and was played by Brian Brophy in his appearance in the TNG episode The Measure of a Man. This episode also features the return and exit of the character Icheb, who was last seen in the Voyager finale Endgame. Casey King plays Icheb here, who was played previously by Manu Intiraymi and Mark Bennington. Rios mentions having worked with Quark in the episode, which is, in a way, continues Quark's streak of appearing in every Trek series set in the 24th century, excepting TNG. And an ad for Mott's Barbershop can be seen on Freecloud. So, what did you guys think of Stardust City Rag? Bill?
I, for the most part, liked it. I thought there were some... there were some issues that I thought it was a little bit confusing in parts. I wasn't, as they were setting up the entire away mission where they were all getting up in their costumes, and they kept cutting back and forth to the mission, to the preparation for the mission, and I kind of got lost with the timeline there.
Yeah. It's that heist movie sequence where everybody's slamming the clip into the gun and they're all getting ready, and then at the same time we're explaining everything. I felt like it was, I feel like it was the obvious choice, but it was a little. I'm not sure why they couldn't have just given it to us in a linear fashion.
Yeah, and I didn't really get the whole facer and what exactly was Rios. Why exactly were all them playing these different roles, and why is Space Legolas there if he can't actually play act? And
I was thinking about that when they were putting the pimp hat on Rios, and they're saying you can't do your broody like space captain thing. You're the face of this sort of organization. It occurred to me, they don't have a face. Every single person on this ship is like broody, and they're all dealing with stuff. And then if you got Elnor, who is just a blank slate, so they need to get somebody who's like the Murdoch of this crew. Mm-hmm. Ella, what about you? Sorry, Bill. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Just that, and then of course they also send down Jean-Luc Picard, the famous admiral who's just been on interplanetary television having a breakdown. So let's put him in this mix as well. I'm guessing nobody on Freecloud is watching the news services, but he did have a scar and an eye patch. So that
I was going to say the eye patch, the accent.
Yeah, right.
Accent really covered it up for him.
The accent, he was magnifique.
Ella, what were your impressions?
I really liked it. I definitely, maybe is my second favorite of the episodes so far. Last week was really a standout for me, which is so sad because didn't this exact thing happen with Disco, where my favorite Disco episode was the week before Kirsten's episode, and I was like, Kirsten, this is a really good episode, but last week.
Yeah.
No, I really liked it. I definitely I'm happy that they've kind of settled into, it's like we have everyone's on the ship, they're going places, because this first 3 episodes, I think they struggled a little bit with like the pacing and the backstory and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. I was very happy with it.
I like the fact, I like episodes like this, this is, with all the costumes and stuff, partially like a fun let's play around episode, but then it ends in like 7 of 9 just murdering everybody in a nightclub. So there's some swings in tone, but I like the fact that they think, or that they want to do this with our characters right now. My only problem is I get this feeling, and we've talked about this on previous episodes of Discoverage, where there's some scenes where it seems like they're kind of marking time, and I'm not sure that they've got 10 hours of material here. And this episode, we of course, we dig into what 7 of 9 is doing here, and there are a lot of interesting things that I kind of would have wanted to see more of instead of them having fun and going to Free Cloud. Like, it opens at Vergessen and the 7 Domes, where they're harvesting like Borg parts, and I'm like, I want to go back there. That sounds cool.
That was wild. Yeah.
What's that setting? Yeah, it just seems so dark and strange. And we, of course, see Icheb, and body count's high for old characters in this episode. I'm not sure why they feel the need to bring these people back and then just wipe them out right away.
Yeah, it seems like they want to make the references. I don't know. I feel like I liked Icheb's kind of cameo, but I think it got undercut by like all the other references that were also made this episode, not really including Maddox and the other episodes, but it was fun to see Icheb, even though it was also horrible and traumatizing.
Yeah, I think you really needed to have Icheb in that role because it's pre-established that he has that kind of relationship with 7 of 9.
Yeah.
And, you couldn't just bring in any other character, any other former Borg and say, have type of moment. But, I agree that, some of the fact that it was Quark's bar on Free Cloud was a little... Okay, why would you need to do that? They have done a lot of callbacks that that's amusing as a Star Trek fan, but did you really need to go that way?
Yeah, they're drinking Tranya. Yeah, I liked the I'll never get the name of it right, but it was the lizard guys, the Beta and Ari or whatever they were, who are tough guys, and they're like human lie detectors. It's like, that's an interesting kind of thing to do. On Stardust City, we see Bruce Maddox meet with this. I called her Miss Slinky until I figured out what her name was, and I think her name is Bajazy.
Yeah, Bajazzle.
Which sounds like somebody's like trying to combine. That's like the couple name for Beyonce and Jay-Z.
Oh my God.
But yeah, but
you might just be right.
Miss Slinky meets up with Bruce Maddox, who we find out is in trouble, and I guess he gets curious and curiouser. The Tal Shiar, or somebody blew up his lab, and he built it with a loan from her, and he mentions the Tal Shiar, and people seem. What I want to know is, it has to work this way because we've got this whole season of TV, but if the Romulans and their entire society is decimated, why are people scared of the Tal Shiar? Or I guess I should say, why do they have so much power still?
That's a good question.
Nobody's really. I mean, nobody's scared of the KGB. Of course, they became the FSB. Nobody's really worried about the Nazi secret police, the Gestapo. Their government dissolved. So I'm wondering, like, how the Tal Shiar consolidated all this power. Like, why are they so feared still?
I mean, well, if you're gonna make a comparison, it's like not to be spicy, but
spice it up.
It's not that often that people talk about being afraid of the KKK, but really, we should be a little bit more afraid of it. Or like, let's say Charlottesville.
Down but not out.
No, And let's imagine that, but then you have, the entirety of space to spread out and hide. You don't have to. I don't know.
Yeah, there are.
I kind of think that the Tal Shiar, they were even more secretive. The SS or the KGB, or they were supposed to be at least, more sinister. And it's like, weren't they? Didn't they die with the rest of the Romulans? Well, that's what they want you to think.
Yeah, didn't they?
They just when you think they're gone, that's when they get you.
Yeah, they didn't they get blown up by the Dominion, in the Gamma Quadrant, but that was just one of their fleets that they've got waiting to attack.
Hydra.
Yeah, it's like Hydra.
Hail Hydra.
Yeah.
Hail Hydra.
We got 2 votes for Hydra here. I'm going to say no Hydra. We see B'Jayzee slip Maddox and Mickey, and he goes down. And I'm trying to deal with my feelings here. Either Melinda Snodgrass was not consulted about this, but I just realized authors lie. Authors lie all the time, especially when they're under NDAs. And so maybe Melinda knew about this the entire time. But we do see the return of Bruce Maddox here, which I think that we were kind of expecting.
Uh-huh.
Did she say that we would not?
Well, she said that she hadn't got a check from the Guild. So,
oh, God.
From a business perspective, she didn't know. So maybe she's writing the Guild and her agent right now. Who knows?
We're calling in from horseback in the American Southwest.
She's in a box canyon. She's got no signal. They arrive at Free Cloud, and the pop-up ads. To know that pop-up ads will exist into the 25th century fills me with more dread than any other storyline here in this show.
It's very Blade Runner, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. In fact, the whole look of Free Cloud was a little Blade Runner-y. Yeah.
I believe it, though. I kind of like that they're going. I feel like, obviously we love Star Trek for its optimism, but it's fun to see the other side of the galaxy. Almost in this series, it's a little bit darker, it's a little more dingy. It's used, but it's
there's always going to be that underbelly of
exactly.
Sure. You want to have want to come do this illicit drug and
yeah.
Yeah. Whereas in the past where it's we're always on a Starfleet vessel, so clearly nothing super. You're not going to see anything super sketchy on a Starfleet vessel because, number one, the Enterprise isn't pulling up to Free Cloud, and, number two, if they did pull up to Free Cloud, I don't think they would get those pop-up. Can you imagine?
Right, yeah. Nobody's home, sorry, yeah. And what, you always assume that underbelly exists, but, I want to know how... Is this in the Federation? Is it just outside the Federation? Or what part of the bad part of the Federation? There's just, I'm talking to a couple of Trekkies here. There's little world building things that I'd love to know more about, but I'm sure that we got to move on. We got other story things to tell. I'm glad that I finally, something's wrong with my PlayStation. Halfway through the episode, it started to glitch out the streaming. So I finally switched to computer and got my closed captioning up and running so I can fill in a couple blanks for myself. It's the Fenris Rangers, which is a cool name for a group of Corsairs. And we get a conversation between Picard and Seven that sort of pits their worldviews against each other and sets up, of course, what happens later. And I think the idea of whatever's happening, whatever part of space they're in, for some reason the Federation isn't there, or they're not doing enough. And so the Fenris Rangers have taken it upon themselves to defend the defenseless, and that's a very Star Wars-y kind of idea. But I like it. I like it here in Star Trek.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Honestly, every episode I'm oh, it's so Star Wars, it's so Firefly. But I think it's just because those are the franchises that have given us this more of I don't know, this the seedy underbelly idea of space. Yeah. If that makes sense. So we're used to that from Star Wars, but we're not used to it from Star Trek at all.
Well, that and Star Trek 3, the bar scene where McCoy goes to the bar. Yeah. After that, we end up, we're at Freehold. Now we're getting the plan together. Everybody is getting their job and everything. And like I said, we're gonna send Rios down, who actually does pretty well. He's aided by the fact that they give him this shot, which is
I was gonna say the Xanax hit.
Yeah, they give him this Xanax hit.
That's why he did well.
Which
See,
I'm
and
sure
this is what I was saying last season on Disco. Saru, can you imagine if you gave Saru just like a quarter of a dose of Xanax? He'd be vibing.
Just half a tab, he's fine. He's good to go.
Half a tab, he'd do great.
Yeah. And everybody
I'm
has
loving this. Yeah.
Yeah. They're going to swap Seven for, or at least act like they're swapping Seven for Maddox, because Bajazi's going to sell him to the highest bidder. So they've got to get down there and do their thing. And I think it's implied, or I think that we can imagine that everybody gets a little bit of this shot, because, come on, you're going to tell me the lizard guy can't sniff through Picard's like ridiculous character?
He does, at the when Picard breaks, he does. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but
I suppose that's true.
But like when Picard realizes that Seven was like lying to him, then the lizard, Mr. Vup is like, hang on a moment. Anyways,
wait a minute.
Wait a second.
Guns out.
All I could smell was the wine.
Everybody
Picard
beams.
Is just as good an actor as Patrick Stewart is.
That's right. Yeah, well, he had all that holodeck practice with Data, so. Everybody beams into the bar, and I think it's rude to beam right into a bar, isn't it? This isn't Second Life. There's got to be like a foyer or something that you have to beam into.
There's a bouncer, and he's like, God, not again.
Right.
Yeah, where the coat check is, and yeah.
Especially in a bar like that, where, you know, there are a few people who are looking over their shoulders for somebody's coming at them with a phaser pistol.
Right. Yeah. Everyone beams down. They've got Seven in some Chewbacca handcuffs, of course, that she can get out of if she needs to, and they're disguised as the Bagmen, and they're gonna hand off Seven here. And yeah, this is where it got a little confusing, the logistics of what the deal was. It seems like Rios is the sort of the point man for this trade, and they sort of send him off, and he's going to monitor while they make this trade. In the meantime, we get our subplot here where Raffi is not going along with him because she's going to beam down, and she's searching out Gabriel Wang, who we discover is her son that she is estranged from because of the problems that she was having, and this backstory that I think I like the way the show was handling it. I'd love to get more information, more detail, see things played out on screen, but I think as modern audience members, we get a story like this, and the novelty is putting it in space adventure, and so it's a very human story about this son who has just had it with his addict mom and her trying to reconnect with him, and I thought that it was neat. I thought it was a really interesting addition to the episode and to her character.
Well, and that scene was they both did such a good job. It was so charged right away.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, very, very subtly done, very, very small scene that just did so much for Rocky's character and backstory. So.
Yeah. And we got a little more of her backstory as well, because we get this sort of confirmation that one of the things that, got in the way of her, being a mother and being in the family is that she was obsessed with the attack on Mars and the Conclave 8 and this whole conspiracy rabbit hole that she was going down, which we've kind of heard about before. And I think it was interesting that when Gabriel's wife shows up, she's a Romulan. And she looks like she's planning to repopulate Romulus. The pregnant prop belly they had on her was very big. So, congratulations on your...
He's ready to pop.
Octuplets, yeah. But I thought that was interesting. And it made me think about some of the criticism I've heard on the internet. I think that people have forgotten how to watch a show week to week, because every episode that they get, they feel like it's the finished project or product. I've heard criticism about Raffi's character the way that they've positioned her and how could she lose her, role in Starfleet and why is she living in a trailer and these things wouldn't happen in the future. But if you look at everything that we are learning about her, we get this picture of a woman who had a work mentor, in Picard, somebody she looked up to, and then also possibly was maybe using a little bit of the snake wheel, a little bit just to get by, and had this whole conspiracy. And you can see how she has basically like thrown her life away over 15 years, just like chasing these ghosts and becoming separated from everybody. It makes sense that she's living out by the Vasquez Rocks. I think when you see the entire picture, it makes more sense, but people just immediately want to jump in and go, that doesn't make any sense. What's this? What's that?
You're totally right.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Ella.
No, I was just saying.
She was just telling me I'm right.
You go, yeah.
And go ahead, Ella.
Like usual, every week, yep.
Well, yeah, I think you got a good point where, a lot of people to watch television week by week, being able to just, binge the entire thing. And, of course, we're also in this culture where you have to do the instantaneous reaction and get online and
welcome to this
say,
live recap show.
This is the greatest thing ever, or this is the worst thing ever, and no, you're wrong, and no, you're stupid.
Bill, please be civil. Well,
let me tell you who I'm going to vote for. And
we'll save that for the end. So back to the show on the ship. Agnes is. We see her freaking out. Traitor, and the EMH appears to address her psychiatric emergency, which I found interesting, forward-looking for future Federation scientists and doctors, but also really invasive. Like, the ship is monitoring your heart rate, and your perspiration, respiration, and all this stuff, and it's going to immediately pop up just because you were watching a football game and they made a touchdown or something. I hope there's a threshold they can set that to.
I loved it. I was like, can you imagine if you start freaking out and then the EMH is like, hello, would you like one of Rafi's special benzodiazepine freaking shots?
Right.
Just right away. You're like, yes, thank you. I love
Let me do a little dance for you, yes.
And keep an eye on the holodeck because you don't want to when you're fighting off the lizard people or whatever, you don't want him interrupting things.
Yeah. The first punch you throw at Skeletor, the EMH pops up. No good. Back on Freehold, the deal is falling apart here because everybody is suspicious of each other and we're starting to reveal things. And Seven just says, screw it, and grabs Bajasi by the throat. And we've got a situation here. And I didn't, maybe I was writing something down in my notes, but I didn't exactly get the depth of the connection or history between Bajasi and Seven. Can anybody fill me in?
Didn't you, though?
No, I didn't.
I mean, I don't want to be the Zoomer here. Okay. I don't want to be the resident millennial, but I think we know.
I'm not going to be the resident.
It seems like we know. It seems like we know exactly the depth of their past relationship.
Okay, all right. Well, there you go. Question answered.
I mean, I was going to ask you guys. I wasn't going to say it. I was going to ask you, but you were confused. Which, I mean, to me, if it was confusing enough that you had to address it, I think that it's clear.
I was probably monkeying with the the closed captioning, so and looking up the name Bajasi in maybe books. Seven says, "Well, here's what's going to happen: take Maddox and go, and I'm going to take care of this." And then we get a Picard doing his thing, which, again, if the creator of the show told me this isn't TNG, maybe this is what he's talking about. But in a couple episodes now, we've had Picard do the Picard maneuver, which is really him appealing to people's better nature, appealing to the ideals that we presume the Federation still holds and that he has always held. And we get a character, again, being like, no, that's not me. I'm not going to do that. And it isn't until she, basically says, yeah, okay, we'll do that, later on the ship, and goes back and kills everybody, that situation changes. But we keep sort of putting Picard in this position as being out of touch with how people view him, possibly being out of touch of the values that the people that he meets at least have. And I wonder what are your guys' reactions to that?
To them portraying Picard as being out of touch?
Yeah, and also just this, this being not the TNG that you thought. I mean, some of the criticisms I've also heard are the Federation would, never be like this, and this isn't what Gene Roddenberry wanted. And, I mean, I don't know how to respond to that, only that humans will always be humans.
I mean, I think...
Or aliens will be aliens, you know what I mean?
Yes. I think as far as Picard's character in this show, I feel like to a certain extent he is out of touch, right? Because he's been living on his, vineyard. He hasn't really had to, clearly he's smart and capable and, keeps up with whatever. He's watching the news. But he worked for Starfleet for however many years.
Yeah.
And then the first time he disagreed with Starfleet and they told him no, he basically, just, went back to, in theory, went back to France. Yeah. So, I mean, he is out of touch. I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the world is always changing. And the world, of the Federation has clearly deteriorated in the past 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
But, there's always, as bad as things get, you always want to hold on to an idealism and, things used to be better. And I think that's what they are setting. And I think that's what they're setting up, Jean-Luc to be, is he's that reminder of what the Federation could be, should be, even as dark as everything else is getting around him.
They got to make it great again.
Oh, God.
Oh, no.
Hey, you guys want to talk politics?
You put those words back in your mouth.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. They're positioning him as this guy who's like, everything was better before. And I don't yet, I mean, the show's not over and it's going to go on for a while, but I haven't yet seen that he's wrong. I want him to be wrong. I think he should be wrong. I think that people, whatever your ideals are, if you hold on to ideals that are over not a century, but like a half century old, then, you need to update them and you need to make way for the younger generation and for new ideas. And so I'm just kind of wondering what their end game is, why they're positioning him like this old fuddy-duddy. Not that I thought he'd come in and start, disco dancing, but I don't know. We haven't got the payoff yet, but I'm not going to be somebody who says, well, I don't like it. I know they're going somewhere. I just want them to get there.
I think it's almost, like we're learning with him. It's like it's this guy who devoted his entire life to Starfleet and he believed in them. So he, with everything he had, he believed in Starfleet, and then to have them betray the, what he thought was their ideals and betray the Romulan people and betray him in a sense, I think was a huge wake up call. And so now he and we are seeing the other side. It's there's, I don't know, the thing with Gene Roddenberry's utopia. It's in a lot of ways, it is a utopia, right? Because you're people say, oh, well, Rafi would never be living in the future, you'd never be living in a trailer alone by the rocks. But it's she was living in a trailer alone by the rocks, but it wasn't it's not like she, is sleeping under a bridge. She has food and a home and it's much better than so many, I feel stories now where it's if you go down the path that she went down, it's all of a sudden like what happened to her, you don't have your husband, your son, your family is gone, isolated. You lose your job, you lose everything, and even though in some ways I'm sure that that kind of stuff, it ruins your life and it ruined her life, but she's alive with she's safe, you know what I mean? So I feel like it's not like they've taken Picard and they're oh, see, the unit, it's grungy, it's not what you thought it was, it's not, Starfleet isn't really what you thought, it's just I don't know.
Yeah. And just the fact that he would give like the revenge speech to Seven and have her say, okay. And then they go back to the ship and she's like, all right, well, I'm taking off. Hey, can I have some guns? Oh, no problem. Like the fact that he doesn't know that she's going to go down there and just wipe everybody out. Yeah, I think that
he looked a little bit like he knew. Like she was like, "Can I have those guns?" And he was like, yeah."
They're not
Which
my
she does.
guns, but go ahead.
Yeah, right. Which she does. She instead of beaming to whatever the Rangers have for her, she beams back down to Free Cloud and shoots. I'm going to call her BJ. BJ's guards, and yeah, I don't know. I don't want to. Yeah, like I said, I don't know why Picard, or if clearly we're supposed to understand that Picard is either doesn't understand or is willing to let it happen, and he wants to believe that there's mercy in the galaxy, but Jaycee's not getting any for killing Icheb, and she kills Jay and blasts her way out of the bar. Back in the Lusarania, we're in sickbay, and they're working on Maddox, and he knows Daj is dead, and he says that her mom AI was activated, or activated her when she was in danger. So we get a confirmation that the mom was a AI, never existed, I guess. And Maddox tells Picard that Soji is on the artifact, so we're getting our marching orders here. We got to head there next week. And he says he sent the twins to find out the truth of the Federation involvement in the attack and the resulting ban. And I'm wondering, how were they supposed to get that information? Did they know that they were getting it? Was he able to monitor them through something that he had planted, or through the mom AI? Like, were they supposed to unconsciously uncover it, or come to a realization on their own?
Excellent questions.
Thank you.
I think he was monitoring them somehow, right, Bill?
I think he had to have been, directly or indirectly, until he got his lab and all that. Mm-hmm. But we do have this piece of the puzzle now that he was behind sending the two to where they are now, or where they ended up.
Yeah.
So that's one piece of the puzzle. Why was this one going to the Daystrom Institute, and why is this one off on the artifact to do something for Bruce Maddox? Okay, but what is that thing? Okay, that's what we're going to find out for the next half of the season. And
as far as it being secret, I mean, the Tal Shiar seems to be pretty close. They seem to know his every move pretty much at this point, because they were right on top of everything. And as he's telling Picard all of this, we cut like 17 times to Agnes, so we get it. And the second that he tells Picard all that information, I'm like, bye-bye, Maddox. That's the end of Maddox. And sure enough...
Really? I was surprised.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Agnes turns the oxygen off, or whatever the future version of that is, and that's the end of Maddox.
Also, I can't believe the EMH doesn't have like a backdoor protocol to punch her in the face. That was crazy that she could deactivate him.
Have the Hippocratic Oath extend to not being able to shut him off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was curious to me as well. Number one, why wasn't the EH there the whole time instead of Agnes acting like she was the nurse running sick bay?
Yeah.
And... how do you tell the EMH while somebody's dying on the table? Yeah, just bugger off.
Right.
I kind of believe it from Rios that he would be like, "Oh, I want complete control over them. Like, I don't want to." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right, and that's probably the best talk. Way to brush it off is just that it's bargain rate that's been reprogrammed by Rios, but
right.
Yeah, well, also, I feel like it was kind of her deactivating him earlier when he was like, "You are having this is an emergency. You need it. Your heart rate's up, whatever." And she was just like, "Deactivate EMH," and he went away.
Yeah.
That too, I was surprised. So I feel like, they were laying the groundwork there for her to be able to just tell him to go away right then. But
Have we seen that he can manifest in multiple locations or identities?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so
You mean to
you there?
Are you asking if he's manifested two different holograms at once?
Yeah, like if he could be engineering and tactical or medical and tactical at the same time. Because if Raffi's back on the ship, she's clearly upset. Why did he appear to her?
But like, is she having a psychiatric emergency actually, or is she like bummed? You know?
Yeah. What triggers it? Yeah, going back to the
or is that
football
her
thing. If my team loses,
right
does
there?
it?
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what Agnes says that stood out for me is that she says that she wishes that she didn't know what she knows, and what presumably Commodore showed her. And I'm wondering what that is. I'm presuming that it is whatever the apocalypse or whatever the Romulans are worried about is. But at this halfway point in the season, any guesses as to what the Destroyer destroys?
Like non what's the word I'm looking for? Like not anyone who's not a synth.
Oh, okay. An elimination of organic life.
Yeah. Maybe?
That happened in Discovery, didn't it? Or we saw a vision of that control. Yeah. I think they're going to steal all the ice cream from the universe. It's hard to know. They're clearly keeping it secret because they don't want to tip their hand. And speaking of tipping their hand, there are no evil Wonder Twins seen this week. We kept the brother and sister Romulans out of this one.
Kind of I think we
Not
deserve
that I
that
missed
break.
them.
Yeah, well, they definitely felt like or didn't feel like they needed that. What you guys think about the return of 7 of 9? I was happy to see her. I'm afraid that we're not going to see her again, at least in this season.
I mean, I thought it was really great to see her again. I mean, first of all, Jerry Ryan kicks ass.
Yeah.
God, she's a queen.
And I mean, what do I want to say? I mean, I think that her story of what has happened over the past 20 years, of all of the characters of 24th Street Trek, after Picard, she would be the person who I would want to see.
Yeah.
The gaps filled in.
Yeah, and her struggle too. Her line near the end of the episode where she asks Picard about, how if he felt like he got his humanity back and how he has to fight for it every day. Like it would be 100 times worse for her, and that. Yeah, I think that journey would be very interesting to see.
And it was interesting to me, of course, because I had written a Picard and 7 of 9 scene in Losing the Peace right after the Destiny trilogy. So it was nice to see that finally in canon, the two of them meeting.
Yeah. I liked Raffi and Rios talking about them sort of on the side about like, oh, that's right, he was a Borg too. They're both Borg.
That was funny.
We still don't really know the state of the Borg at this point, in the story.
No.
I was convinced. I was convinced that 7 was gonna die. I was like, this is it.
Uh oh.
And during that scene, I was like, oh,
they come in
no
threes.
way.
Yeah.
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 Thank God she did.
I'm really curious now because, we've seen the cube, we've seen the artifact, and we've seen, it's been however many days since anybody's been assimilated. The Borg are apparently not a ever-present threat, but there's still people who are trying to make buck off of former Borg who have dormant plants.
Yeah.
And it's like, how big of a business is that? And why are there so many? Why would there be so many deactivated Borg?
because of what they're doing on the artifact, right?
Are they bringing other Borg into the artifact? I
They've
imagine
got,
they
I don't
probably
know
are
how
because Hugh is
many,
there.
yeah, I don't know how many Borg are just like in refrigerators on the cube, but like those scenes, what was it, last week or the week before, where they were like, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's like a gigantic advent calendar, right? And they're just popping
Yeah.
open all the doors and getting the chocolate out. Thousands and thousands of doors. Yeah, I felt
Because
like
they also said, I thought that, at least to me, I thought they implied that like they were having trouble, like kind of disconnecting the Romulans from the collective that they found, the Romulan Borg, whatever. But that, like, I assumed that the other races they were finding, that they were able to kind of, you know, ease back into a semi-normal life.
Yeah.
I kind of that was completely isolated to the artifact, but we now know that, the JJ in Free Cloud is making bunches of, a lot of buck on used Borg parts. So where are they? Are they connected? Or is there something larger?
It goes all the way to the top.
Goes all the way to the top.
Oh boy.
Tal Sierra's behind it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we could just sit and write the next 5 episodes if you guys want, but I think we're going to have to wait for the story to come out on a succession of Thursdays. Anything else anybody wanted to say about the episode that we haven't said yet?
I wonder why they cast Bruce Maddox with the actor that they did.
Yeah.
Because he didn't really look a lot. I mean, he didn't really look a lot like the character from Measure of a Man.
Yeah.
He didn't really act like him. Not that, of course, there's 30 years in between. Yeah. But, I saw him and I saw more of a Rainn Wilson's Harry Mudd than I did Bruce Maddox.
Sure. He probably read for it.
He may have read for it, yes.
Yeah.
And, and of course, they've been talking about, we have to find Bruce, and they find Bruce and they kill him. So.
Yeah.
I mean, Agnes does.
Right. I think he appeared in the flesh to have that beat specifically. It would be a little bit of a letdown if they just got to Free Cloud and found out that he was already dead or something like that, or just fully disappeared. But it feels almost like that since he spends so little time on screen in the episode. Who knows? He could appear in video logs or flashbacks or something like that. I'd hate to lose the character development. He was such an interesting character in that original episode, The Measure of a Man, and just seeing like 30 years of him going from a guy who's like, yep, chop him up, we got to mass produce this data, to a guy who more fully understands the implications of that, and then himself like creates 2 young women, 2 daughters, sort of, who he sort of shares parentage with Data. And I would hope we get some version of that arc, and he's not just gone forever.
So we think Agnes is going to kill Soji, right? She's going to try.
She'll try. Then she'll get her head cut off by
Yeah.
Elnor.
Oh God.
Going to try to kill her, or going to try to out of her brain that she needs to get out of her brain.
Ooh.
Yeah, she won't kill her. She'll just take her brain. Well, I can't wait to find out.
Taking a character's brain. Wow, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. Well, we'll find out what happens in a future week, but that's it for our show this week. Thanks for joining us, listeners. If you like what you hear, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at EISTPOD for updates and to get notified when new episodes of both Enterprising Individuals and Discoverage are released. You can tweet to us on the show by using the hashtag hashtag Discoverage or email us at eistpod@gmail.com. And while you're on the internet, why not head to your listening platform of choice and subscribe to our show feed at Enterprising Individuals and give us a rating and a review because it really helps us out. If you want to help the show grow, you can stop by our Patreon page at patreon.com/EISTpod. And as always, if you like the show, tell a friend. And one other thing, I mentioned on a previous show, I'm not sure which one it was, but I mentioned that I was trying to assemble a group to start a campaign for the Star Trek Adventures RPG. The company Modifius has a great new Star Trek game. I'm not getting paid to say this, but if Modifius wants to write me a check, I will take it. I'm just trying to put a group together for an introductory adventure to play online. So if any listeners out there think that's something they'd like to try, shoot me an email at eistpod@gmail.com. I've already got listener Josh on board, so write in if you're interested in joining this particular crew. Discoverage will return on February 27th for the 6th episode of Star Trek Picard entitled The Impossible Box. That episode will be directed by Maya Vervilo, who was directed previously on Discovery. We'll be going live once again at 7 p.m. Central, so join us then. You can follow us on Twitter or Facebook at EISTpod to get notified when we're live and broadcasting. And in the meantime, please check out our main show, Enterprising Individuals, at enterprisingindividuals.com. Every Wednesday on the show, I'm joined by a special guest to discuss in excruciating detail a selected episode from a Star Trek series. We also have news from the Trek Sphere and interviews with special guests. And our latest episode dropped yesterday. On the episode, I'm joined by writer Kelly Fitzpatrick to talk about the Voyager 2-part episode Scorpion, which features the first appearance of 7 of 9. You can check that out at enterprisingindividuals.com. Ella, thanks as always for joining me to talk about this episode of Picard. Remind people where they can find you online.
You can find me at Generations Geek on Twitter and Instagram, generationsgeek.com, and, of course, Generations Geek wherever you listen to podcasts.
Generations Geek, Generations Geek, Generations Geek. All right.
Everywhere.
And, Bill, it's always great to have you on the show. Where can people find you online?
Thank you very much. Best place to find me, if you wanted to find me, is on Twitter. My handle is at @BLeisner.
B. Leisner.
Come look at all of the... I'm sorry?
Oh, sorry, you cut out a little bit. B. Leisner.
So if you want to come and see my snap judgments about things that I can't be patient about, that's where to find them.
People, check that out. And that is it for us. Thanks for listening, everybody. We're signing off. This is Aaron for Ella and Bill saying live long and prosper.